Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. This is a tabletop role-playing game channel, and we love to discuss anything and everything that influences us in our tabletop role-playing game journey. And this time, a Netflix movie has gained the attention of the public, and I thought we would take a look at that. But before we do that, let's get our intro out the way and talk about the Netflix movie and its legal implications that are brought up in the movie Rebel Ridge. All right, let's get this out the way. Spoiler alert, spoiler alerts, spoiler alert. We're going to talk about the movie, recent release in Netflix, Rebel Ridge, and the movie that was written around a particular legal imperative that is being used and in many ways abused by law enforcement in small communities across the United States, at least as detailed in this movie, and doing a little bit armchair research, finding out how it is being used. We're going to talk about that. There's going to be spoiler alerts about this movie. Even with the spoiler alerts, you should really take a look at it. It's not necessarily a pure action movie, some saying in the vein of like Rambo, but if we actually go back in the past even further, it's more of your classic Western. Our lone mysterious hero comes into town and gets involved in corruptions in the town, despite his desire not to get involved and such. Yeah, oh man. Can we get a recap replete with spoilers so I'll never have time to watch it? Yeah, we will. We will. So I have with us a clip. Hopefully we won't get dinged on playing a little bit of the clip. We will do a breakdown of that clip. But Rebel Ridge involves, and like I said, spoilers here, Terry, our main character, who is riding a bike coming into town. He's listening to music. He's on a lonely road. A police car pulls behind him very quickly and seemingly wants to get around him, although he can't hear because of his, he's got headphones in. And yeah, it's the Old Boys Network in this movie. Nah, it's Netflix. Here in the States, at least, it's broadcast on Netflix. So there's an accident. The police run him off the road. They grab him. They attempt a slightly tense investigation as to what's in his backpack and why he didn't move off the side of the road, and he needs to abide by the rules of the road. And reluctantly, our main character gives permission for the police to go into his bag. They go into his bag. They find wads of cash, $36,000, I believe. And they immediately say, we suspect this of being drug money. And he's like, I don't have drug money, and I explained to you why I have cash, which were two things. One, he sold his stake in a restaurant, and he also sold his car, and he was going to use that money to bail out his cousin. And knowing that his cousin has to get out of jail because he got a lighter sentence in order to turn state's evidence against a known criminals or gang or something like that. Yeah. Oh, yes. There is a yes. There is an Old Boys Network. Yes, you are correct. I thought you were meaning us old boys here, us graybeards. Yeah, he says in the sense of a clique of old, good old boys running a town behind the scenes. And yes, to be honest with you, the main villain of our main antagonist of this movie has a great motivation, corrupt as he may be, great motivation, played by Don Johnson, the actor. And both of them coming to odds in this movie are great. So we will show a clip here. Like I said, hope YouTube won't ding me too much, because I will be. This is the idea of doing a critique. And yes, this is definitely going to be a tabletop role-playing element. Specifically, This movie was written, the writer and director of this movie wrote it about a specific law that law enforcement can use to have a weapon against organized crime, and it's called civil asset forfeiture. I'm calling it CAF. I don't know if it's normally reduced to CAF, but civil asset forfeiture is the ability for law enforcement to restrict and claim assets, usually money, but it can be property, vehicles, things like that, assets used before, during, and after the perpetration of crime. So it is used to prevent criminals from, say, using large amounts of cash to defend themselves if they're arrested. It's used to collect cash so criminals can't leave the country, or bribe people or things of that nature. And we understand that civil asset forfeiture is absolutely positively a tool in the toolbox of law enforcement to stop organized crime. Unfortunately, there are two aspects of CAF that are extremely harmful as portrayed in this movie, and it gets under your skin immediately. First of all, the individuals being detained by the police do not have to arrest or even charge the individuals if the police suspect that the money or the assets are being used for a crime. All the police have to do is say, I believe you're using it for drugs or bribery or some other crime, and the police get the ability to confiscate it free and clear. The second part of it is civil asset forfeiture is definitely a weapon used against organized crime, basically multi-million millionaires and above who can use that wealth to navigate the world that us plebes can't. And it gives the local law enforcement, heck, even if you're here in the States, even the FBI and NSA, the ability to go after people who have large amounts of resources. But it's being used against people who have no money. Once their assets are taken, they have no other assets. When you confiscate someone's car or cash because they don't trust banks, or money gathered together by um, uh, the community that's in cash and being used, and it's not illegal to walk around with cash. And uh, yeah, yeah, and this is a great thing. I'm going to go see what you guys have to say. So see what CIS stands for again. I can't remember. Is that some sort of anti-corruption agency? I'm not. I'm not certain. And I know it's different than CSI. I know CIS stands for something. And you got me. Oh, live. Don't do that to me. Hey, Drew. I'm sorry about that. Oh man. Yeah, I hope everything's all right. And I hope I can bring some. I can't solve your issue, but I hope I can allow you to leave that for just a moment so you can recalibrate yourself and go back into what's going on. So apologize for that. So let's go into let's take a look at our clip here and see if there is some way to give you an insight into our protagonist and our antagonist. By the way, Don Johnson, great actor, but you scare me because this is the second time you've played an excellent character who is borderline uh, racist, which I love this about this movie. They don't bring up the movie is doesn't explain everything, including at the end of this clip. It does a feature where it doesn't explain a thing, but you get what it means. And the movie doesn't hold your hand at all. You have to infer what the heck is going on. And I love this movie because it doesn't, it is emblematic of when people talk about uh, racial disparity and how it is never brought up. It is never said outwardly, but you understand that this police force is using that because those individuals are probably at the lowest level, the weakest members, the poorest members of society, and using civil asset forfeiture to take advantage of them. Yeah, I don't know. No. It's not about that. So let's see what this clip has to say. Oh, let me just make sure the clip. Okay, yeah. Is the sound on for the clip? Yep, sure is. So let me know if you can. By the way, let me know if you can hear this.
And you need to worry about right now is PACE. PACE. Ever heard of it? It's a plan and methodology used for comm systems, but they found it could be applied anywhere. Nursing, engineering, parachute infiltrations, posting bail. So the P is for primary. That's me, riding in a town with my bag of money. A is for alternate. That's a deal we apparently never made.
So I'm going to stop it right there. Of course, for YouTube, and of course to discuss what's going on. Yeah, he was riding his bike in the town, and they stopped him, confiscating his money. And his purpose was to take that money to. Oh, thank you very much for letting me know about the audio. Yeah, hard to know if something's working live until we are live. Yeah, Shice is borderline racist in the sense that he never says anything bad about black people. He's just yeah, yes, very much so. You're so funny. But clearly, Terry, our main character here, is riding in town. By the way, he's a British actor. His accent is very slight. He does an excellent job doing an Americanized stateside accent. So good on him, by the way. And they are basically assuming that he is a criminal or he's doing a criminal act simply by the fact that he has cash in his backpack. It is not illegal to have assets of any type, whether it's a home or a car or whatnot. And sure, we today do think of people walking around with wads of cash as being odd, maybe even suspicious, but he does apply a reasoning to it, in which case they ignore it because they go, well, the assumption is a person riding a bike with that much cash, like why wouldn't you spend it on a car? Which he explains to them. He sold his car, he sold his stake in a restaurant, and he has to put that cash down to get his cousin out of jail so he doesn't get killed. So yeah, maybe not in this movie, but yes, the CIS may absolutely be it. So we're going to continue with this clip as I explain just a little bit of this movie. This happens relatively early in the movie, by the way. Again, spoilers. Let's go with the clip again.
C is my contingency. That's the restaurant owner you put out of business this morning. And there it is.
So, when he says that is the restaurant owner you put out of business this morning, what Don Johnson did was using the ability and the abuse that civil asset forfeiture can have. The sheriff called a community or county over, it doesn't matter where it's at, but it is in another district, and he finds out that Terry really did have a stake in this restaurant. And by making a simple phone call, he gets the other police force who had nothing to do with the situation to go in and seize the assets of the restaurant owner, simply by suspecting that there might be some illegal activity. And what ends up happening is, like I said, law enforcement can seize assets if they believe a crime is happening. Now, we understand if a criminal has access to millions of dollars, lots of assets, yachts, private planes, people that are being paid money to keep their mouths shut, or for organized crime things like looking the other way or false identities and we understand that law enforcement has to have the ability to shut that down. But we're talking about average citizens. He literally bankrupts this restaurant owner. And this is why the civil asset forfeiture of this movie had garnered so much attention, because you could literally just be driving down the street and they can take your car, whatever assets you have with you, And now you're like, well, I can't drive to work. I don't have money to pay my rent. I don't have any assets to get a lawyer who has to fight it. And as portrayed in this movie, in addition to that, they say it's going to cost you more money to get your assets back and than it would to just let it go. And statistically, they're proving that civil asset forfeiture has, if you, depending on which statistics you follow, has surpassed burglaries and robberies of citizens just simply by the police assuming that you're committing a crime. And it's pretty horrible. So let's continue with this clip.
And there it is. Spot on too, like you just ate shit. Anyway, you got me burning through all these letters. And after this conversation, we already on E. You know what that stands for?
Marine Corps Martial Arts Program.
What?
MCMAP. Combat system combines hand-to-hand, close quarters.
Dramatic music.
I think he's on the Wikipedia page. Teaching jujitsu to the 6th Marine Regiment.
Okay.
I'm scared.
It's team building. One mind, any weapon.
Call in any units on patrol.
Yep.
Here come your peeps.
Chief,
You want to honor that deal, or do I gotta transition to
put
E?
some distance between you.
Let's not do that.
So amazing. We're gonna close this out. So great clip. It's definitely from the movie, of course. From the movie Rebel Ridge, and again about the civil asset forfeiture. No, I never heard of that song. Yeah, and civil asset forfeiture has been around a long time. Unfortunately, because civil asset forfeiture has been spreading amongst, let's just say, the lower echelons of society, most of those people have the inability to bring attention to it. It costs so much money to get your assets back that most of those assets are just stolen. They're just gone. And here's another ridiculous thing. When the assets are accounted for legally, the state, the county, will sue the assets in court according to the name of the asset. In other words, they make the asset as if it's a living being in a court case. So it may be local county versus $86,000. It may be county versus $2,500 and a 1996 Toyota. It's essentially oh no. It's pretty. It ends up. The action ends up happening pretty quickly. Now, mind you, like I said, for an action movie fan, this isn't that kind of movie. The conflict, the verbal conflict, the verbal sparring between Don Johnson and our main character. What is his first name? Last name's Pierre. And Anthony? I'm just gonna call him Terry. That's his name from the movie. Sorry about that, actor. Their verbal sparring in and of itself is this boiling point, and it's done very well as they're on the phone with each other and they're talking to each other as they're navigating this. They're trying to do two things at one point. They are both trying to get out of their situation. Terry just wants his money and get his cousin out of jail, and our sheriff wants to get this problematic individual from out of town, wants him to get the hell out of town, but he also wants to keep his money. And while this is going on, unfortunately, they are both doing a genital measuring contest here, and that's not a good thing when both people have their pride and their egos involved. And Terry, you see this in the movie, that Terry is struggling with holding on to his manhood at every step while these good old boys network, like you mentioned before, Hunt, that he is trying to maintain his manhood while every moment they are trying to crush it out of him, kicking him while he's down to try to get him out of town. Lyrics. Property seized and sold before trial. Labor camps on American soil. Yeah, it's very much that way. So what we are a tabletop role-playing channel, and while we do talk about some modern day things in the news and whatnot, what does this have to do with tabletop role-playing games? Well, what I love about this is a great opportunity to get our adversaries to abuse something that wasn't meant to be abused. This is very much like, if we want to go classic fantasy, this is very much like the lawful evil, loopholes, exploitation of a rule that the rest of the people in this situation are not exploiters, but they are part of a bureaucracy that this sheriff knows the bureaucracy is not going to work in favor of these victims. The sheriff knows that if the rest of the bureaucracy just follows the rules, their one exploit has a downstream effect that flows through the bureaucracies that will prevent this cash from even being used from this individual getting their assets back, because everybody else along the way is going, listen, I understand this may be wrong, but I'm just following my I was hired to do this thing. I'm just here to follow the rules. And by everyone else just following the rules and not speaking up, even if they, in their heart of hearts, feel it's wrong, the law says, the bureaucracy says these procedures must happen. And that is why so many of these people are taken advantage of. It only takes a small element to make this thing happen, and then the engine just starts rolling and it takes care of them. Yeah, plausible villains and not just generic bad guys, monsters and bad guys. So anything with an old boys network is a perfect setup for a cast of villains in RPG. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So what is the motivation of before we get into Terry and his motivations, let's talk about our bad guys. So our bad guys, our antagonists, of course, literally they are the antagonists, but yeah, these are our bad guys. And the sheriff, what is his point? Well, it's not necessarily air quotes racism. That isn't it. What it is he is feeling a loss of his way of life. He's feeling a loss of a challenge of the community. And he feels a desire to protect his community, and more so protect the idea that these small police stations, these small offices, these little sheriff's communities in these small little counties are being swallowed up. And this is a real life thing. Here in central Ohio, we had two small towns, I'm going to call them, two little counties. One was called New Rome and the other one was called Bryce. Both of them within 10 minutes, one's within 10 to 15 minutes of me, the other one's about 20 minutes away. And they were shut down by the state. And they were shut down because of their abuses. And these little small communities were trying to maintain themselves similar to this abusing civil asset forfeiture. They were trying to abuse the law. They were writing frivolous tickets to people for speeding 27 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. They were pulling people over for the most frivolous things, giving them the highest ticket amounts and making people pay these tickets. And that's how they were earning money for themselves. Civil asset forfeiture would have definitely been the next step up in terms of saving themselves. Hit point forfeiture. Yes. Yeah, following the rules. Is Terry like the paladin, or is the thing where lawful good turns out to be evil? No, Terry is absolutely trying to, he is the paladin, right? He's the person that's like, listen, I'm letting you know. He tries to be very upfront with everything he's doing, including that PACE clip that I just played, right? Where like, look, here's what P stands for, here's what A stands for. Now we moving on to C, and he's like, yeah, there's that shit eating a grin, right? He's trying to explain to him like, the more you show your corruption, the more I don't have to abide by your rules, and that's where the tension starts to rise, because part of us doesn't want Terry to go over that line, but the other, the emotional part of us is like, yeah, we want him to beat ass, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, two small towns. Yeah, New Rome and Bryce are two small towns, and when I say small, between a few dozen to 100 people live in a little small town, and they had their own police force, and their own. They even had their own judicial system, and yeah, absolutely, they're gone now, and you find out in the movie, spoiler alert, that our sheriff is one of the last holdouts amongst all these smaller communities, where he knew these other sheriffs, and they had this like network. There was a respect with each other of these taking care of their community. What happens is that the police in the past violated someone's civil rights, and you never see what happens, but you understand that a lawsuit happened, that lawsuit was so high in monetary compensation for the people or person that they violated their civil rights, that it was a value that would bankrupt the town. So our sheriff starts using civil asset forfeiture to make up for that lost money, because they were charged so many millions, or could have even been the hundreds of millions of dollars. The fact that they were violating people's rights, and we know what violating someone's rights is, right? Abuse, no Miranda, overuse of violence, that kind of thing. We understand what that means, and yeah, those towns they exist on paper, but they don't exist separately any longer. They don't have their own judiciary. They don't have their own police force. The state disbanded them, and now it has a name. So Bryce and New Rome exist, but as far as being separated from the rest of the community, no, not any longer. Yeah, Shai says, I heard in West Virginia and Ohio that they pull people over all the time for hardly any reason to search for drugs. Maybe just an urban legend. It is not. We have a highway. We have two highways here, a north-south and an east-west highway, 71 and 70, and they are notorious for pulling people over to search for drugs. Now, mind you, Ohio made the news as being one of the most prolific, horribly good thing, prolific states for having opium, an opium epidemic and whatnot. And yeah, so it's chicken and egg, right? Like, which came first? Were they violating the laws or the overreach by the police? But yeah, it's definitely a thing here. So our bad guy is being motivated by, he wants to save his community. He wants to save the police force. He knows it's expensive. He knows on the horizon, if we get one more lawsuit, if one thing reaches the public eye, if it reaches beyond our small community and goes to the state level, and the governor gets involved, and what's the name of the organization? Attorney General's office. If the Attorney General's office is involved, they're going to get shut down. They're all going to be fired. They're going to be blended into some other community. There's going to be, the sheriff is going to have someone above him telling them what to do. They're going to have the state patrol involved. It's going to be this whole big mess, and their way of life will disappear. It will be homogenized, and he's afraid of that. And that fear causes him to engage in this and get his good old boys network to engage in the civil asset forfeiture mechanism, getting the assets of people, knowing we suspect that they might be drug dealers. All they really want is the cash. Now, there's another feature of this movie, a detail that you really have. The movie has a lot of little details. Spoiler, again, for those who are like, I'm giving everything away. Yes, definitely spoiler alert. Body cam and police cam footage is held for 90 days. And that information held for 90 days can be used to prove the violation of the rights of these people that are being arrested and having their assets seized. Well, after 90 days, it's deleted, and there's very little that the people that are arrested can do to fight. There's no evidence. It's just one word against the other. So what are they doing? Well, they're arresting people for 90 days. They release them after 90 days. They say, hey, we're not going to charge you, and release them. But oh yeah, your assets, we're going to keep that. And what I like about this in terms of our bad guy is that the laws that surround this make perfect sense if they are used through their intended purpose. Maybe in a fantasy, let's go with fantasy, right? Maybe in fantasy there's a knight's order or religious order, or maybe there is a group of warriors or rangers or whatever that's protecting the community, and they have the right to go into people's homes or take whatever is necessary to continue this war or defend the countryside against an evil horde, right? We've seen this in fantasy many times. We, as a matter of fact, we know in a war footing that the local people, whether they are creating harvests to feed people, or there's stables with mounts and whatnot, that the authorities can go in and confiscate that for their use. How many action movies have we seen a police officer hold up a badge to a driver and say, I'm not confiscating, I'm requisitioning your car, and they get into a big chase or whatnot, okay? And we understand that in the pursuit of justice and the law, that they have access to that. Hey, we do need to feed our army, and we do need to give over some assets and give over some of our rights to protect everybody. But how easy would it be when you dangle absolute power in front of people that they will become corrupted? Absolutely. Wait, you just by virtue of me claiming that this needs to be used for the good of the people, that you are committing a crime, that we can take these assets? How easy would it be for just one person to claim that and take it for themselves? What a farmer has somehow has a great harvest or something. Do these people take it off the top and take theirs first? A home is in an ideal location on a riverbank or the top of a hill, and the local constable is like, I would love to live there. We need to take your home because it's the perfect outlook to look out above the community, to defend it, And the family's like, oh, I can't believe I have to leave, but I guess I get it. I guess I'll have to move. Even the idea of being detained and arrested, people, charging into the locals' homes, being told, we suspect there's evil here. There's, I don't know, were-rats and trolls in your basement. We need to take your home, and kicking the people out of their homes and just taking it for themselves. And then how easy would it be to move into the more fantastical or arcane, and such as I don't know, forcing spellcasters to not use spells for the public, but only use it for the judiciary, because they need to confiscate your spell books and magic for our uses and only our uses. Maybe there's a teleportation portal or a way to communicate with outside monsters and creatures and stuff, and the local nobility is like, hey, listen, we need to use that for our own purposes. You don't have the ability to just travel anywhere willy-nilly. It belongs to us now because we suspect that you are, I don't know, I don't even know the word for that. You're making deals with evil beings from the outside world. Hey, we see, devil horns and a forked tongue and a tail on you. You're dealing with those people. We suspect you being dealing with Mephisto or whatever. And the person's like, I'm just a spellcaster. I make light spells and do prestidigitation. They're like, we don't care. You're definitely suspected of that, or maybe even some point in the future, you're an agent of evil. We're going to confiscate everything you have. A great motivation, especially if you have the opportunity to build one or more of these NPCs up in your tabletop role-playing experience. Now let's transition over a little bit into Terry. So we understand that Terry is a MCMAP practitioner, Marine Corps martial arts program instructor. He has not been sent overseas. It's more important for him to the Marine Corps wanted him to be an instructor, and you find out he gets to really use this non-lethal, disarming martial arts ability against these perpetrators, and you really get to see him use that against exploitation. Drew says, evil does not exist. It's only a justification to treat others horrible. Yeah, I agree. And you, Drew, you understand. I'm just using very simple language to explain something. It doesn't mean that our bad guys aren't claiming other people are evil. Just like this police force is saying, we suspect you of using this for, this is drug money. Well, just being suspected doesn't mean you're guilty, but being suspected of a thing means that they can confiscate your assets. That's what civil asset forfeiture is used for, to prevent someone from doing that. But simply being suspected of doing a thing, like an inquisition, we suspect you of being a witch, we suspect you of harboring evil, we suspect you, and boom, you're in trouble. And if you really want to get under players' skin, try to have some NPCs confiscate their they went through the trials and tribulations of gaining whatever goods or services or friendships or physical representations of their successes, and have somebody else just take it from them. It won't be good. Your players are, you talk about setting a player off. Take a copper piece from a player unfairly, and you will get them to hate your adversary. Absolutely. And what makes things worse is our character Terry tries to go through the rules. Listen, my money was taken from me unjustly. I'd like it to get it back. I would like to, use the money to get my, cousin out of jail, and I want to put the money down for bail. And he's being stopped because of how the system works. He's being stopped along the way from his desire to do what he wants to do. The bureaucracy is holding him back. And we really get a look at how that bureaucracy works. And one of the characters does fall on his side, right? Does say, well, listen, I got to let you know, the rules aren't exactly nice. And yeah, it's not really going to work in your favor. And so he's given a crash course in how the system works and how it unfortunately can work against you. Now, we do see the police, both Terry and the police are reluctant. This isn't a shoot 'em up movie, so it's not about like, oh, we're just going to like murder kill people in the streets and no one's going to say anything about it. The police are just as reluctant to want to commit too much harm against Terry, just as Terry doesn't want to harm them. But again, the tension levels keep rising, and eventually they try things like, for example, he ends up getting an ally that's, a young lady that's like, listen, I don't have, I lost custody of my child. I want to get my child back, and the only way to do that is to get clean because I was on drugs, and to have my job in the court system and learn everything I can about my legal rights. And they do the dirty by injecting her with illegal drugs, and then they somehow have a random drug test just when she has to return to work. Of course, she doesn't pass the drug test, which means they have to fire her, which means it goes on her record, which means that she can't get her daughter back because she's been fired. Why was she fired? And this whole thing, and they use that against her. And I love those machinations of our bad guys that aren't just like your classic big brooding, big bad evil guy, video game-ish, drooling, overpowering, physically intimidating. No, they use the system against our hero, and using the system against our heroes is really cool. Meaning, who's to say that those that have been appointed for law enforcement don't accuse our tabletop role-playing group that they committed a crime, or that they shouldn't be trusted, or that they are in league with the very evil that the people are protecting themselves against. And of course the players might scream and yell and say, we're not related to them, I don't understand why being charged. But the accusation itself could pull back all of the things, the assets that the players have garnered. Maybe they are friends with the local Wizards Council. Maybe they do have allies with a local mercenary band where they can go in and just get retainers and henchmen and whatnot, but not if they're being charged. Maybe those people are like, listen, I don't even want to be part of this. And hey, I even believe what you're saying, but I can't be associated with you because you're going to pull me into your drama with the local enforcement agency, and we don't want to be part of that, which adds yet even more layers of drama. NPCs that want to help the player characters but are afraid, the citizens that have no opinion about it, they just want to be left alone. There's the citizens that would just look at the PCs like, well, clearly because they are the law, you must be wrong because they are accusing you of being wrong. Therefore, I believe you are wrong. Therefore, we understand why you're wrong. And the players are like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. You can't just accuse someone and make that real. Unfortunately, perception does bring reality, right? Random drug test. What did she test positive for? Was it just a good old J? No. It was an injectable, and yeah, they don't explain it to you because you get it, right? It's the kind of thing that doesn't need to be explained. It's the oh yeah, I get that. I get what was going on, and yeah, it's just it's a thing. It's unfortunate, but it is a thing. It's crazy. Trying to think what else is. Here we go. Something else that happens in the movie that I really appreciated was the fact that Terry tries to parlay with our main bad guy played by Don Johnson, our bad guy, right? Our adversary. And during the parlay, they're both like, Terry at one point says, all right, listen, how about I need to take, I think it was like $10,000, and I need to take this money and use it for bail money. But here's what I'm going to do. Terry swallows his pride and he's like, listen, I'll give this money to the police fund, $26,000, just out of the goodness of my heart. And the sheriff is like, okay, because the sheriff understands. The sheriff's not stupid. And the sheriff understands that in order for Terry and the legal system to accept what's going on, there's a certain nomenclature, certain verbalism, certain procedures you have to go through. A donation is a whole lot different than accusing the police of just straight up stealing your money. Now, mind you, we do hear the corruption, right? Like, this isn't just our adversary here going like, I'm doing it for the good of all the police stations and to keep my community. I mean, and this was a real thing. He is accused of buying a margarita machine. Let me see if I can even find an article here. Police buy slushy machine with stuff. I'm sure there's an article. There's some articles. I'm going to share this tab out, and yeah, these some of these are pretty. The titles of these are pretty funny. Like for example, and I didn't even click the articles yet. Margarita machines, a Zamboni, and no due process. This was in a case that happened in the past. The police purchased a Zamboni machine and margarita machine and a Zamboni. This is here in locally that happened here 5 days ago. How a civil asset forfeiture nearly destroyed an Ohio couple. I believe they worked for Amazon. Asset forfeiture reform, no more margarita machines, and they mention that in the movie. And again, a lot of articles. Asset forfeiture, fuel police spending, Forbes article, Forbes federal forfeiture program. What is funding? Secret slush funds for asset forfeiture. There's a very funny. This is a very funny video. Civil forfeiture last week tonight with John Oliver is hilarious, et cetera, et cetera. And the margarita machine. Let's see if they show a picture of it. No, it's going to be a bunch of pop-ups, aren't you? ACLU. No, they don't have one. So anyway, the margarita machine comes about because in a court case, they tried to find out the law enforcement. Judiciary was like, well, what did you spend the money on with this asset forfeiture? And they spent money on a margarita machine, and come to find out that even with the money that is legally seized through civil asset forfeiture, that there's no oversight in how that money is used. So can they buy a margarita machine or a Zamboni without any due process? Yes they can. And how they keep the money without just giving it back, they charge the money. They basically sue the money in court. Now, the money itself doesn't have any legal rights. It can't speak for itself. It doesn't have anyone to defend it unless you come forward. So that allows them to keep it and then use it. And no one is the wiser for how that money is used, or even has the right to tell them to not use it that way. Yeah, and even in this article, it does say, pop quiz. Rhode Island law allows law enforcement agencies in some circumstances to confiscate your belongings, including your home, car, cell phone, and money, a process called civil asset forfeiture. Which of the following steps have to happen in order for your belongings to be seized? Okay, let's see. You have to be convicted of a crime. You have to be charged with a crime. You have to be arrested for a crime. You have to be investigated for a crime, or none of the above. And the rule is none of the above. They can just stop you or come to your home, come to your place of business, and then take it. And again, this is the unintended consequence of this. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. But the police need the margarita machine to work properly. Yeah, you gotta get those slushies, right? Yeah, this is a real thing. Yeah, it sounds like they're making it up as they go along, and this is the, if we can talk about tabletop role-playing games, this is the actual definition of subtle corruption, right? So the rule was created to stop the big league guys. The rule was created to stop those, hundreds of millions of dollars that criminal organizations have to use to navigate away from the slip out of the hands of law enforcement. So we need a rule to be able to stop it. But that rule to go after the big boys has come down to the lower folk. So large cities, your large cities and states that have these big cities like Illinois, New York City, Florida, California have big cities in them. Miami and New York City and Los Angeles and Chicago and places like that. Big cities, big criminal organizations and whatnot. But with these smaller communities, flyover country, right? Middle America, they don't have these multi-million-dollar national criminal organizations. But those criminal organizations know that they can get away with things in smaller communities. So then they bring civil asset forfeiture into smaller communities. And, when it comes to like tabletop role-playing games, how interesting would it be to have the ability for the higher levels of your world building, whether it's fantasy or modern day or science fiction, to come in, much like I guess you could really relate this to the Empire in Star Wars, where the Empire comes into these small backwater planets and goes, hey, listen, we're confiscating, we're taking over this region. And the people are like, wait a minute, we didn't do anything wrong. And they're like, well, we found a dozen people doing something wrong, so we're going to make sure all 100,000 of you are being punished for it. So you're telling me I can simply take the hit points even if the players have done nothing wrong? Yes, it's just simply an asset that the players are using, right? Right? Yeah. It's not just hit points, it's experience levels too. Yeah. Boom, boom. I love it, right? Could you imagine? Hey, I know you guys are being sarcastic, but this could be a real thing. What if there's player characters have access to hit points, experience points, magic items, magic spells? What if there is some kind of extra dimensional planar organization that monitors how magic is used, and they can literally come in and confiscate spell slots? Like they can say, you know what, those spell levels of 5th level and above, we're taking those back. Like you can't use those. And the players are like, wait a minute, what? You can't, you don't have, no one has the ability to do that. And they're like, oh, no. We are there's a monster called, not the Eternals, the Extremists. There's these were extraplanar creatures that kept reality in check, and they could come in and like change the rules of the world. How interesting and how deep and how fun would that be for like high level gaming, for a sentient outside industry to come in and go, no, you're pretty much abusing your abilities, so we're gonna take that back, and your spells, you know what, we don't think you're using them well. We're gonna confiscate those. If you want to get them back, you're gonna have to, show up in this extra planar court that's in its own special dimension. But just understand that you've been accused of harboring, I don't know, helping out in the blood war or something like that. Helping the side of the abyssal creatures and the creatures from the 9 hells. So yeah, we're going to get to keep this. Heck, even here's this happened recently. A former Amazon employee was never charged with a crime. The FBI told him he was under investigation. He was never arrested, but his money was. And yeah, this is only 5 days ago. Although they haven't been fighting this this is October 1st, and they've been fighting this since December 2019. Columbus, Ohio. In December 2019, a former Amazon employee sent an anonymous email to Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and his ethics team. The email claimed that a kickback scheme was happening involving land deals with Amazon's data centers in Virginia. Something happening here. The data centers, that is. The informant named Carl Nelson and others and provided documents about the alleged crime, a crime involving millions of dollars. Now, normally we would think that this individual would be protected under, we do have laws to protect whistleblowers, and that he would be protected, but that doesn't protect his money. By January, Amazon lawyers contacted federal prosecutors, and by April, the FBI paid a visit to Carl and Amy Nelson's Seattle home. What transpired over the next 4 years would nearly destroy the Nelson family financially. While never being charged with a crime, the Department of Justice arrested their money, their bank accounts were seized, and their credit cards were frozen. It's called civil asset forfeiture. Yep. Yeah, an asset, according to U.S. Department of Treasury, asset forfeiture, and like I said before, is a vital tool that serves a number of compelling law enforcement purposes and is designed to deprive criminals of the proceeds of their crimes, to break the financial backbone of organized criminal syndicates and drug cartels, and to recover property that may be used to compensate victims and deter crime. Notice that it says it's used to deprive criminals of the proceeds of their crimes, which means you technically are considered innocent until proven guilty, to break the financial backbone of organized crime syndicates, which means they have to prove that you are a crime syndicate in the first place, which hasn't been proven, and drug cartels, which include this couple has nothing to do with drugs, and to recover property that may be used to compensate victims and deter crime, but we know that that money is not being used to compensate victims, and we really don't know how much of it has been used to deter crime. But yeah, this family, yeah, spent $3.7 million to date. It's a real thing. Yep. But anyway, a real thing, real case, and that's just anyway. But you guys get the point, right? Yeah, right. As opposed to play immune. Yeah, right. Yeah, we confiscate your bat guano. No more fireballs against everything you see. Slow clap on that one. Yeah. No, was it no bat guano? No 1,000-piece gold piece diamonds. No, that's for a resurrection. I think no pearls. I think that's for the identify spell. You guys have to come up with some other things. Oh, what's the one? Oh, lightning bolt. No copper wire. Yeah, joke is on you. I'd play barbarian, but if the spells are taken from everyone, then I guess it's time to kick some lich arse. Yeah. Now, wouldn't it be funny if a lich went to a higher power in the upper planes? An evil lich went to the power in upper planes and accused the player characters of abusing their magic, and then the beings in the upper planes go, well, we really don't like you, but you are pointing out a crime being committed by the player characters, abuse of magic. So I guess we will have to do that, in essence, abusing the bureaucracy that exists. Why so complicated? The Empire tied the players are in simple. Found out that the party has a lot of money but no home, so they are taken into prison. Their money was convicted because such money could not be legally gained as homeless. Huh? Oh, I see what you're I see what you're saying. Like, wait a minute. If you're a murder hobo and you don't have a home, you couldn't possibly have all this money, so we're going to take the money because there's no way you could have legally gained it because you're homeless in the first place. Yeah. It's proving the thing by saying the thing was proven. Yeah. It's a post-employer. Are you immune to any of this? Hell no. They confiscate your magic items too, so your barbarian can't do jack against the lich. It's like getting your house and car seized before trial. Yep. Yeah. Pretty hilarious. Pretty sick too. About this. And mind you, I'm not claiming that civil asset forfeiture is terrible. What I'm saying is that it's abused. It's two separate things. And how many different types of laws could we look around? I mean, if we think of, here's another big thing that's happening in the United States, especially in Florida. Always Florida, right? But there's the draconian rules from HOAs, the home organizations that are used, that when you move into a small community, they have an HOA, and the organization is to ensure that people keep up their properties. It's basically like supposedly a democratically voted mechanism, so that there's some authority to the group, so that people keep their grass cut, keep music down to a certain level. Sometimes those HOAs talk about the colors that you can paint your home, and the kinds of things you can build onto your home. But some of these HOAs are horrible, horrible. And I think the what makes this even worse is we can get our bad guy to hide behind the good guys of our world, forcing the player characters to have to fight through the good guys to get what they want. So, and that makes our protagonists go against the goodly people, even though the evil person is hiding behind them. In other words, civil asset forfeiture is a quote-unquote law. It is a law by our law enforcement that is supposed to be used for good purposes. The fact that they do it nefariously means that the other pieces, the other gears of our legal system come into effect, and those other pieces of the legal system automatically assume if this asset was seized, you are the wrong person unless you prove otherwise. And oh, by the way, since your assets don't have any legal rights, you're just going to have to wait and spend the money to get it back. So it is automatically assuming because you've been accused that you're already bad. And remember, those people that have been accused were never arrested. Some of them were detained, like in this movie, in Rebel Ridge, they're detained for 90 days. But after that, you can go about your business. No sorry, no thank you. We're just keeping your stuff. Yeah. What quote? We can neither confirm nor excuse me. Here's a quote. We can neither confirm nor deny if we have the mayor's possessions. That was reportedly the statement from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Sacramento to Stockton, California Mayor Anthony Silva last month. And this was written in 2015. According to Silva, agents of the federal government acting without a search warrant or any documents from a court seized his electronics at the airport, including his cell phone. They indicated that this action to confiscate personal property at the airport was in fact routine and not unusual. They promised to return my items within a few days. They also mentioned that I had no right for a lawyer to be present, and being a United States citizen did not entitle me to rights that I probably thought. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Very few people realize their property can be taken under conditions in which there is no presumption of innocence or right to an attorney. Since civil asset forfeiture proceedings are not criminal, property owners who are not actually engaged in any crime can have various possessions confiscated at whim, requiring only a judge's rubber stamp. And they face certain difficulties in reacquiring it. And usually it says requiring only a judge's rubber stamp. Usually the judge says yes, because the assumption is the law enforcement arm, the enforcement part of it, is doing it for a good reason. So the judge goes, yeah, oh, they confiscated that. Of course they did. Click, boom. They don't question the police, right? It's got a long history, and let's get some numbers here. According to the state of Michigan's 2014 asset forfeiture report, $23.9 million was seized last year just from suspected drug-related forfeitures. Some of the cases make interesting reading. The 2008 report included $900 in fees that 44 patrons. Oh, I remember this. Yeah. In 2008 report included $900 in fees that 44 patrons of the Contemporary Art Institute of Detroit were required to pay to get their cars back after attending Funk Night at the museum. They were able to recover their cars, but not their fees, even after a judge eventually said they lacked criminal intent when they parked at the museum, which had failed to obtain a liquor license for the party. So they didn't get a liquor license for a party known as Funk Night at the museum. 44 people, well, there may have been more, but they confiscated 44 cars, and to get their cars back from impound, they had to pay $900. This is back in 2008. They kept the $900, even after the judge said, well, there wasn't any criminal intent from the people that showed up. They just had a party. In many ways, it was the fault of the people who didn't get the liquor license. but there was no sorry about that. There was no, and here's the thing, they went through the entire process of impounding 44 cars. It wasn't like they were like, stop the party, stop the alcohol, we're giving you a fine. No, they went through that whole process. Here's another report. The second eyebrow-raising statistic is that 80% of the cases last year, I guess this is in Michigan, 8,558 never went to court. All of these transactions were with law enforcement agencies. State and federal agents shared a plunder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah. Crazy. So yeah. So let's get out of here. Let me see what you guys come to think of. I've never heard of anything like asset forfeiture in Germany. It seems like they actually take their constitution seriously here. Yeah, maybe, yeah, or they abide by the spirit of the law, right? It says, okay, they do have a thing where a court repo man comes and takes away your stuff when you can't pay your debts, but I think you get it back once you pay. Yeah. Sorry, the spell fireball is forbidden in this country. Yeah, exactly, right? Because of the spell, because of this spell, tree cities were burned down. So if you are not part of the military, we will throw you in prison. I love that. Yeah, they will throw you straight in jail for tax evasion, though. Yeah. Hey, it's going to cost you money. Yep. Why not? Why not? I love it. No due process at all. Holy hell, they might as well just come out and admit it that the Constitution's been repealed. Well, see, here's the fuzzy part, right? The fuzzy part is it is the law. The civil asset forfeiture is a law. It is we suspect you of a crime, so we're going to seize your assets. The tail end of that, and mind you, I will say that there are communities, and when that report went through here in Ohio, TV 10 that reported it, it does say that the Attorney General's office has put an amendment to that, basically saying if you're going to seize the assets, you also have to have proof of the reason why you seize the assets. It's not just an assumption. It's, if we suspect you of criminal activity, well, what is that criminal activity? Show us receipts, basically. Show us documentation, show us witnesses, show us victims, things like that. So there are, and mind you, this also means that judges can get involved and say, wait a minute. You took the person's cash, you took their money, you took their car, you took their property. Where's the proof? You got to give it back, right? And it can also be used as fuel for like countersuing. So someone could try to countersue, but in many of these cases, once you take everyone's assets, they don't have any money to hire a lawyer to defend themselves to get back what they lost. You have to have a lot of money. Like the couple that's been fighting since 2019 against Amazon, when Amazon called the cops on them and had their assets seized. Isn't there an amendment to the Constitution that straight up commands you to ignore unconstitutional laws? I don't know. And the case could, I guess the argument can be, like in tabletop role playing, is it the spirit of the rule or rules as written? Right? That's the hard part, right? Is it spirit of the rules or rules as written? So I don't know. I think it really depends on what you mean by that, right? It really depends on that. So yeah. Let's see if there's any other Rebel Ridge thing. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for letting me to share this out. I know we didn't hit too much on the tabletop role-playing part of it, and I guess I would like to find out more about whether there's something about you are commanded to ignore unconstitutional laws. But I guess the argument would be, if it's a law in the first place, is it unconstitutional to have that in existence, right? So, and bad guys hiding behind the goodly laws and using them as a barrier is really fun. And I think you can make some good stories about it. Maybe we might even talk about this the rest of the week, about how do we incorporate the goodly monsters, creatures, elements, NPCs into a game. Because, you know, we have games where they give us our stat blocks. They tell us who they are, but many times we don't use them because aren't they the good guys? Like, why would they be fighting the player characters and putting the player characters on their heels in terms of, do we just straight up become villains to go after the real person that has harmed us? Or do we abide by the rules? And how frustrated are we about abiding by these like draconian rules that were set up to go after the evil lich, but now they're being used against us, you know? That's a brilliant tie-in. Yeah, I mean, is it because technically civil asset forfeiture's rules is written? Is it fair? Is it good? Does it feel good to have that happen to you? No. But is the spirit of the law the good thing? And the spirit of it is good, yeah, to shut down drug cartels and major criminal organizations. But when it comes down to a person who is saved $8,000 because they're driving to pick up furniture because they just purchased their new home, and a police officer just happens to pull them over and takes their money because they needed furniture and repairs on their house. And they're like, well, but I don't have a bank account. There's no law that says I have to have a checking account. I got this money from my family that was given to me and donated. I mean, hell, even imagine a married couple that just got married, and you know how they have the little box or cage or something where people have a card and they might have cash stuffed into it, and at the end of it they're at home and they're opening it up and they have a wad of cash in front of them. And if they drive from their home to the bank and get stopped by the police can say, we suspect you of being drug dealers. Take the money. Boom, done. Just there's all kinds of reasons why people have cash in loads of cash in their possession. If you own a small business and you have to make that deposit, there's a load of cash you're going to have. And all it takes is for a police agency to go, there they go, leaving their small business, let's pull them over. It says, yes, the founders assumed that the government would turn tyrannical at some point and start enacting unfair laws. So they put in this proviso that, that your duty to ignore unconstitutional laws. Right. But how do you force the people who are making the rules to abide by those rules? Because the only people you can go to are the people that are abiding by those rules. Look, evil, bureaucratic evil, right? It's hilarious and it's funny and it's sad. So, yeah, how do you force the? It's crazy. How do you force the? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how you do it. I mean, how would you even, who would you even go to, right? I mean, that, of course we do have laws and you have class action, you have lawyers and things like that, but your average citizen, your lowest level citizen has no ability to fight against that. Even if we all know they're correct, we see in this movie, and as expressed talking about, that there are people in the bureaucracy that go, oh no, I feel for you. But yeah. There are people in the bureaucracy that are literally saying, I feel for you and I don't agree, and I agree with you, but the rules say we have to keep this until you prove that it wasn't used for a criminal thing. And it's one of the few moments, few situations where innocent until proven guilty is actually opposite. You're guilty until proven innocent. And in order to prove your innocence, you have to spend a lot of time, a lot of money, have a lot of wherewithal. And remember, from the moment you start fighting until you win, if you win, there's going to be a lot of pushback. That law enforcement agency, especially if you live in a small community, can have reprisals against you. You can have your name tarnished. you spend a lot of time and energy that you wish you could spend on your family and friends and relaxing, you know? So anyway, I thought we would talk about it. I wasn't expecting maybe to talk about it the rest of the week. I don't think we need to, but there might be some really fun, dare I say, real life rules and regulations that have been continually abused, and we can use them for world building. So anyway, great motivation for our bad guy to frustrate our heroes, especially when the heroes aren't fighting the bad guy, but they're fighting against a system that they've been thrown into and cast out. I mean, could you imagine doing like a Planescape adventure where the players are cast out of the goodly realms, accused of consorting with the bad guys in the lower planes, and just by the accusation, they're kept out? And what do the players do to try to make amends for what they've been accused of? And maybe there's even hunting parties out after the player characters, and they're like, we were angels, like you kicked us out. We didn't do this. We were just accused of doing this thing. We aren't really contorting with the evil people. So it's great you persuaded me to watch Rebel Ridge now. That wasn't my intention, but yeah, it's pretty good. It gets into it pretty quickly too. First 5 minutes, it draws you in. If you don't find it compelling in the first 5 minutes, you don't have to watch it. That would be my take on it, and I guarantee you're gonna get pulled in it. So guys, thank you very much for letting me ramble on about this. Thank you very much for letting me show off this movie Rebel Ridge from Netflix, and talking about civil asset forfeiture, which is a legal doctrine, and to make that interesting. So yeah, but anyway guys, have a great one. I won't hold you any longer. Peace and tranquility. Bye.